Obedience is a bit of a dirty word when it comes to relationships today. That's why relationship psychologists have come up with other terms that describe what spousal obedience is in a way that they think sounds more digestible to modern ears. Since it turns out obedience to each other in marriage is actually a recipe for a very successful relationship, even if it feels uncomfortable to admit at times. In this video, I'll be discussing exactly what spousal obedience means and how you can use it to improve your relationship. I'm Cameron, I'm a licensed therapist, wife, and mother, and this is my channel, Modern Marriage, where I share with you all the tips, resources, and insights that I've gathered from working with couples in therapy so that you can start building the relationship that you've always wanted. So to Christian couples, spousal obedience isn't necessarily a new concept. For example, most people, even if they aren't religious, have heard the passage from Scripture that starts with, "Wives, submit to your husbands." A passage that gets a bad rap, but is actually quite a beautiful depiction of marriage if read and contemplated in its entirety. However, the concept of obedience within marriage can be useful for all couples, regardless of religious background, and one aspect of it was actually most famously studied in recent years by renowned clinical psychologists John and Julie Gottman. They just call it something different. Accepting influence. Accepting influence from your spouse boils down to a serious consideration of what parts of your spouse's feedback could be true and worth learning from. It means being willing to admit that since your spouse probably knows you better than anyone else and has seen all of the good and bad parts of you, his feedback may have something in it that could help you be a better wife to your husband. And the good news is that we can all change how we interact with and treat our spouses in small ways without trying to change our core personalities or values. For example, my husband tends to wake up before I do, especially since at the time of filming this video, he's working pretty long hours and I'm just a couple weeks away from giving birth. And since I need the extra sleep in the mornings, I asked him to tweak his morning routine just a bit to be a little quieter. Even though he's a naturally louder person than I am, a small request like closing the dresser drawers more quietly or laying his work scrubs out the night before don't require him to change who he is at his core, just how he goes about a small part of his day to help me out. And you know what? He's done what I asked, and he didn't make me feel bad for asking for what I needed in the first place. And trust me, I've made many of these similarly small but important changes when he's asked me to also, since there are many ways I've needed to accept influence from my husband so that I could be a better wife to him. Of course, it's a lot easier to do this if your spouse delivers the feedback in a constructive and gentle way. However, the couples that I've seen make the fastest progress in therapy are the ones in which one or both spouses took to heart the idea that since we can't control other people, the only thing worth focusing on is how we respond to other people, including and especially our spouses. And when couples have done this, almost as if by some miracle, I've watched them both soften to each other. As they start to accept influence from one another, they change the way they give feedback. They're more loving and appreciative of each other's efforts, which makes it a lot easier to continue to accept influence from each other in the future. So that's the first part of spousal obedience, accepting influence. But spousal obedience also means trusting your spouse at least, if not more, than you trust yourself. Now, before I continue, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this, and share this video with someone who you think might benefit from it. So what does this sort of trust look like? It's certainly radical by today's relationship standards. This sort of radical trust, for me in my marriage, has looked like giving my husband the freedom to do what I asked him to do the way he thinks is best. The biggest test of this has always been when we're in the newborn phase with one of our kids. If I asked him to change a diaper, hold the baby, or put the baby down for a nap, I try only to offer suggestions or feedback if he asks for it, knowing full well that he will decide to do some things differently from me, and that's okay. Kids have moms and dads for a reason. We aren't supposed to be the exact same. And if I'm asking him for help, I've found that the fastest way to punish him for his efforts and make him feel less comfortable helping in the future is to criticize how he helps. Trusting him has also looked like valuing his opinions as much or more than my own, especially during disagreements. Part of why I married my husband in the first place is that I trust him and his opinions more than anyone else I've ever met. So some of this is about choosing someone you respect, but it's also about having humility, about being willing to admit that your spouse knows things that you don't and can help you expand your understanding if you're willing to be wrong. It has also looked like asking fewer questions. If he asks me to do something, unless I need clarification on how to do it, I try not to ask questions. Specifically, I try to avoid asking why questions. Why do you need me to do that? What good is that going to do? Why can't you do it? Instead, I just do it. I trust that he has a good reason for asking, and I use it as an opportunity to show him that I trust his reasoning. I'm still working on this one, but when I've been able to show him this level of trust, it has really done wonders for our relationship. And lastly, it has looked like giving him the benefit of the doubt as much as possible, rather than questioning his motives. My husband and I have talked a lot about the vision that we have for our life together, the sort of marriage we want to build, how we want to raise our children, and how we want to exist in our community, and specifically how we want our Catholic faith at the center of all of it. As a result, I've come to deeply trust that his mission for our family is the same as mine. So if he's tired, cranky, or stressed one day and says or does something in a way that bothers me, I try to react with love instead of frustration, forgiveness instead of punishment. After all, I know his deepest intentions are really good, at least as good as mine. So why not use the hard moments to show him how much I trust those intentions? Okay, guys, what do you think? Does this align with your experiences of obedience within marriage? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And until next time, I'm Cameron, and this is Modern Marriage.